Hi
Rabbi.
everyone and welcome. We have begun studying chapter 51 and we're holding in the middle. Just a short introduction and perhaps a story or two. The rabbi began with the words of the Yenuka, this young boy that said that a human being is like a candle. The flame is godliness and you need to have oil for the fire, for the flame to be held by the wick. The wick is the body. To mitzvot, fulfillment of mitzvot, is the oil that we keep pouring into to feed the flame. And the rabbi began to explain the idea of the relationship between God and the universes, or God and us. In order for us to understand God, the rabbi says, let's look at the human being. And that's what we were concentrating. I want to summarize and add a little bit to what we study. And today we're going to hopefully study a second half, the relationship of God into the universe. That is a reflection of the way a human being, a human body functions. On one end, the body, the soul that gives life to the body is so foreign to the body, you couldn't find something more farther, more opposite. On the other hand, without the soul, the body is nothing. It will not sense, it will not grow, will not survive. How does that happen? Says the Rabbi that the soul of a human being possesses, and I gave you a summary because we've been studying. This is kind of, to me, some of it is a summary of what we've been studying throughout the chapters. The soul made up of two separate powers. Tonight I'm going to show with you that it's actually three. But the soul is made out of two powers. One is very general. It's like a DNA. The DNA is not the power to hear or to see or to digest or the skin tissue. It's all inclusive. Are there any details in that power? The answer is absolutely not, because otherwise you'd have two entities competing, the physical body and the soul. The soul in its core is a very simple, no measure, no weight, no color, no specific talent, but it's all inclusive. Everything is there. Then another component, the soul develops into sharing with the body parts of the soul. And one part of the body that goes to the hands will create the power to move or to sense or to hold. Why? Because that power of the soul finds a tool that operates in a certain way, and therefore it works that way. Did I make myself clear? Ali? Okay, thank you. I want to share with you two other points that I discovered tonight that are very powerful. Number one, therefore, in this process, there are 4 points to be made. Number one, it all begins in the brains. The brains not just is the central point, but the soul enters the body through the brains and leaves the body through the brains. When a person leaves the universe, I hope no one will experience that. I don't remember ever experiencing it, but I was close to experiencing it. You would hear a sound that goes out of the nostrils, because the soul leaves the body from the brains. It enters the body from the brains. The brain houses the start of the soul, therefore it's the most powerful. Number one, so it starts at the brains. Number two, from the brains, it sends out to every other part of the body, and we talked about it. That's why the body works in tandem. There is no central command, because those powers are in the body part, each one in their own. Number three, even after those soul powers are in the body parts, they are fully controlled by the brains. They report back to the brains. They tell the brains will have full control over them. Is that clear? Do I understand that? Okay. That's point number one. The second point I want to show is a little deeper, and to me it's very exciting. And I'll share with you why. The soul that the Rabbi is talking about that has two powers, the general DNA and the one that's individually tailored to every body part, is actually the external part of the soul. But the soul in its essence have nothing to do with specific powers. It's so powerful that have nothing to do with so many. So therefore, the soul can be divided now into three levels. One, the soul in its core, nothing to do with creating and giving power. It's a very powerful energy, light. Then another component of the soul that is able to enter the body, but still it's only the DNA. And finally, the powers of the soul, the way it goes into every body part, and therefore it is specific to the body part, to the eye, to the nose, to the lips, to the toes, to the nails, to the hair. So there are three general powers. Harry, did you understand that?
So no action occurs until the soul dictates it.
Of course, not because even after it goes to the body part, it still is controlled by the brains and it reports back to the brain. So if it hurts, if I put my finger under the door or on a fire, the sense will be here. But what's important for me is that there are three levels of the soul. One that's totally not connected to any powers or any specific abilities, and therefore it's completely devoid, removed from the body. The other one is once that a soul sends itself or part of itself into the body, but now it's just a DNA. And the third one is when that DNA is developed and is able to enter specific body parts and bring specific powers. Ali, did you understand? Now, I just studied from a book of a famous rabbi. He explains that's why, how many components to the soul?
Oh, five.
5. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. We spoke about it. Remember I said to you all the time, I tell you that Yechida have nothing to do with the body and it's still by God? Ali, do you remember that? That Yechida never enters the body. It stays with God and reveals to us to connect whatever God wants us to know. That's the first part of the soul that I was talking about. Chaya, I told you, is overall, all-encompassing of the body. Remember that? No? Chaya is outside, so to say. It's the Sovev. Okay. And Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama are the ones that enter the body and control each body part. Now we understand the 5 powers of the soul. Did you understand that? Anyone who's been studying with me for years should know that there are 5 components to the soul, and they are Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Nefesh gives power or existence to the physical body parts. Ruach to the emotional. Neshama to the intellectual, to the intelligent component. But they are already in the body the way the body operates. In other words, the lowest level of the soul. Above it is the soul, like a DNA that will send out and control all of the body components. This is Chaya. And the third one is Yechida. Yechida doesn't even enter the body. It has nothing to do with the body, it's with God. Is that so? Which part of the soul leaves the body when a person dies? The nefesh. Later on, the ruach, and finally the neshama. That's why Mishnah Otiyot Neshama, when we daven the first 7 days, the ruach and neshama are still next to the body. And only after Shiva, the ruach leaves, and the neshama will live after 12 months. But that's already different discussions. Did I make myself clear? Oh, good. Now I want to share with you some stories. The idea of the stories is to demonstrate that the mind controls the body, and the rabbi specifically was speaking about the heart, because my heart pulls in the wrong direction. My heart gets passionate about good food, about looking at things that are inappropriate, doing something, staying in bed longer, raising my voice, not telling the truth so everybody can look up to me. The heart will always pull in the wrong direction, but there is no way to think that the heart is in control unless you allow it. The evil soul, the animal soul, exists in the heart. The godly soul is in the brain. The way we are built is that the brain is above the heart. We need to know that we control every component of our life, including our heart. And here is some stories. One that's a classical, the other is a modern story that I just for today. The other one, the first one I know for many years. During the Alter Rebbe time, the Alter Rebbe of the Tanya, the war between Napoleon and Russia and the Tsar was taking place. The Alter Rebbe was a big fan of the Tsar. He did not want Napoleon to win. He felt that Napoleon would give a lot of freedom, and that freedom will cause assimilation and people living the Torah. Napoleon knew about that. Napoleon tried to find the Alter Rebbe. He was chasing him. The Alter Rebbe had to run away, and he died on the road running away. But the Tsar had sent soldiers to escort the Alter Rebbe while he was traveling for 2 months until he died in a small village. I've been to the Alter Rebbe's burial site. It's in a Jewish cemetery that's the closest to that village. But it wasn't where he was a rabbi and lived most of his life. He died on the road. He had a chassid by the name of Reb Moshe. That Reb Moshe, aside being a deep thinker and Kabbalist, he also studied languages. He spoke very well French and Russian. Chassidim usually wouldn't bother with the Russian language. They would know only the basics to get away. The Alter Rebbe sent Reb Moshe to Napoleon's camp to infiltrate the camp and to become a spy for the Tsar. And that's what he did. To find plans, strategies, where, numbers, etc. And he did so very well. The Tsar rewarded the Chabad Hasidim later on in many ways. But Reb Moshe was a spy in the heart of Napoleon's office or central command.
The beard and the hat didn't give it away. He was just reading my mind. He had to have a beard.
He had a casquette like everybody else. Everybody wore. Everybody had a beard those days. Look at ancient pictures, you'll see. Even the Wild West movies, they all have beard and hats. Everybody wore hats and beards. They were not. They were smart people.
Black coat and
One day, by the way, Napoleon was a witchcraft maker. I don't know if you know that.
No,
Whatever.
never knew that.
One day, Napoleon walked into a room where high officers were looking at a map, and they were planning the next move. And he looked at Reb Moshe, and he went over to him in a surprise, put his hand on the heart, and says, "You are a spy for the Russians." And he waited a couple of seconds, and then says, okay, I see you're not a spy. What Napoleon did, he knew that the heart will race where you fear. When you fear, your heart race will go very fast. He put his hand on the heart of Reb Moshe, suspected of being a spy, and he blamed him to his face that he's a man who is normal, his heart would be racing because that means certain death. There is no question. Yet Reb Moshe was able to compose himself and allow his heart, make sure the heart does not change. Later on, they asked him, where did you train yourself to do that? How were you able to control yourself? And he says, the Tanya taught us, my Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe was his Rebbe, The Rabbi taught us that you have to control your heart, subdue it to the brains. So I am able to tell the heart how fast or how slow it should operate. That's how far the brain can control the heart.
Oh my
So when
goodness.
someone says, I can't, it's too hard, temptation, it's blah, blah, blah. That's story number one. Here is story
Wow.
number two. Is this the first time you heard the story from me?
Say that again, please.
Is this the first time you hear this story?
Yes. This one you just told?
Yeah.
No, you've told that before.
Thank you. Here is a story you did not hear before, at least not for me. It's a true story that happened a couple of years ago in Israel. A young boy was unfortunately afflicted with a major ailment, cancer. And he undergone treatments. Anybody who has experienced, no one should, can tell you that it's very painful and you're not sure if it's going to work. You are hoping. And a lot of it has to do with hope. Because if you're not hoping, you're doomed. And if you think that a treatment will help, you also are doomed because it doesn't always work. Anyway, this child came to as close as possible to have no future, and somehow he recovered. When he recovered, he asked his father to do a thankful meal. There is something called Seudat Hodaya. It's a mitzvah to thank God anytime something special happens. By the way, that's why we make a meal on bar mitzvah and wedding. Why do we do a party? It's to thank God. It's not for everybody to spend more time or for the family to spend money. So his father called family members and the friends of the boys, and they did a very special meal in which they praised God, thanking God for his kindness. But the child asked the father to invite a particular doctor to make sure that his schedule allow him to attend that meal because it is the most crucial for him. It's very important for him. So he reached out to the doctor. The doctor would treat it and cared for the child. And he came to the party. While the party was going on, the child asked to speak. And after thanking God for the miracle, great miracle, he says, I want to turn around and thank this doctor because I did not invite all the doctors who treated me except this doctor. And let me tell you why. I was lying in bed and I knew the seriousness of the ailment was very little hope. And a group of doctors came in to have a conference and they were discussing. While they were discussing, one doctor says, I see no hope. It's not worth even to continue investing. Another doctor said, yeah, I agree. Another done. Suddenly one doctor says, I see how much this child is willing to live. And I see how much is he fighting. And I see how much he is willing to overcome so much pain. I do believe that with his willpower, there is a chance that he might recover, and therefore we should continue treating him. And the child says, this was this doctor, the only doctor who trusted that I can have a chance. And when I heard that, I said to myself, if it's up to me, I will fight. And that's what I did. I was fighting and fighting and fighting. And that's why I wanted the doctor to be here, because I want publicly to thank him to be the angel of God to save my life. When he was done, the doctor asked to speak. I had to ask to speak. And the doctor got up and said the following. I want to be honest with you and share with you the truth. I also gave up on you. I did not see any future. I did not think you recovered. What you heard me speak, I was talking to the child lying down in bed next to you. That's the one I was speaking about. Because for you, honestly, I believe to the other doctors that there is no chance. What do I learn from that story? It's all here. The child heard something. He believed that what he heard was directed towards him. And because of that, he decided to fight. Despite all the prediction of all the doctors who knew what they're saying. And naturally, they were right. They saw no way out. Yet it worked. That is, the body was able to cooperate and fight the disease. To me, this is the power of the brains. So when people are addicted, of course, there's always an extreme situation like ailment. We need professionals. I'm not here to discourage anybody from getting professional counseling, therapy, medicine. This is God creation for a reason. But in the ordinary day-to-day life, we should know that if I set my mind onto doing something, I should be able to reach it and my body will cooperate. Did I make myself clear? Here is the final story, and then we're going to go to read. The Rebbe Maharash, the fourth Lubavitch Rebbe, the great-grandson of the Alter Rebbe, had a chassid who used to have manufacturing of galoshen. Galoshen was very well business. He was very successful. And he did very well because in Russia, everybody needs galoshen. You can survive a winter without galoshen. One time he came to visit the Rebbe for a private audience, and he turned to the Rebbe and he says, Rebbe, I am so busy with my business. I can't trust anybody because of the way the business is running. And thank God I see God's blessing. I'm very successful. I give tzedakah, but I make no time to study Torah. I don't have the time. Because as soon as I wake up, people are waiting to talk to me. There's always emergency. There's always overseeing. There's always overriding. There's always issues with the plant that I must attend to. By the time I'm done, my eyes are closed. My wife has to wake me up for dinner to keep me awake so that I should eat, and then I fall in bed. And the Rabbi turned to him and he said, you plant produces galoshen. I have always seen people wearing galoshen on their feet. I've yet to see someone wearing galoshen over their head, except the way you describe yourself. It looks like you're wearing your galoshen over your head. And it's time for you to realize that galoshen should go into the feet and keep your head away from the galoshen. This was a figuratively response. Harry, did you understand what the Rabbi was saying? What did the Rabbi say?
Concentrate on galoshes for galoshes, but concentrate on the rest of the
Galoshes go in the feet. You do as much, but don't allow them to take over your hair, your life, because if you do, you're putting the galoshes over your head, not on your feet. And the feet are the one for action. That's what they are. Not for, so clear yourself of this business story and dedicate time to study Torah, because that's what the head should be involved with. We need to understand that whenever people say, I can't, I don't know, I don't have the time, I'm speaking about myself, by the way. I'm not good. It is because of decisions they make in the head. Everything is controlled by the head. So if I have taken upon myself to use my brains to study more Torah, even though I'm tired, I'll make sure I'm not tired. No one should be able to say, I have no choice, my heart is pulling me, because as I shared with Reb Moshe, as I shared with the little child, as soon as he heard something, I wasn't even directed towards him. It motivated him to fight, and he was successful. His life was saved. This is the idea of the brains, of the soul entering the brains. So again, as I compare that to the 5 powers of the soul, you have one power, it's called the essence of the soul. It has nothing to do with the body. You have a second power, just a DNA that enters their brains. You have the third power from the brains, extends and give life to particular body parts, but they still report to the brains, and the brain still fully control them. It always worked that way. And in God, as we're about to discover, there are three components. There is one called Atzmus Umahus. The essence of God have nothing to do with the universes, no relationship whatsoever. Then you have two other powers. One is called Sovev, the DNA, the part that comes in and all encompassing all the galaxies, all the stars, all the universes, all the animals, man, plants, and etc. And then you have another component of God that's developed into details, myriads and untold number of components that it gives life to each one according to their needs. And they all give back, controlled by and respond to Sovev. And Sovev is to Atzmus, which is to the essence. So the essence has nothing to do with the universe. We talk about the light that comes out of the essence. Did you understand that, Ali? Should make sense, should be obvious. How many galaxies there are? How many stars there are? Anybody knows?
Billions, trillions.
100 trillion stars in each galaxy. How many galaxies there are?
Trillion.
There are science went and counted.
Billions.
Yeah, go to AI, it will tell you that. How many galaxies there are? Over 100 trillion galaxies. Only in the Milky Way. The level of existence is impossible to even comprehend. All that are detailed, just like we know today, how many cells the body have? Trillions, 2 trillion cells. Anybody knows that? No? Go and ask how many cells the body, each human body possesses. In the trillions. It's not hundreds or millions. We used to look at the body, 248 body parts, trillions and trillions of cells. All that it came from Memale, from the third level of the godliness. Now the Rabbi is going to take the experience or the example we learned from the human body and apply it to godliness. And God will use the example of light. You have the source of light, we call it Ma'or, and the emanation of the source of light called light. Light will shine based on the recipient, because if I put a veil, the light did not change, but I do not get so much light. In other words, the levels of energy that comes to the human have nothing to do with the essence of the luminary, with the source of light. That has to do with the recipient. So is with the neshama, just like in the soul. Did I make myself clear? Oh, good. Now let's read.
I'm going to ask a question. You know how we talk about the continuous creation happening all the time?
Yeah.
Is it the same concept with the godly soul that we have?
Yes, that's exactly the same.
Creation?
What happens if the soul stops giving life to the hand? The hand will not operate.
But it was. But
The
it's-
soul continue providing life to every part of it. Otherwise, you don't sense. What happens if there is no sensitivity? Someone loses the power of sight, God forbid, or the hearing. It means the soul is not that component of the soul is not there. So the soul must continue revive that body part, and so is God with the universes. It's exact mirror. It's exact reflection of God. We are, and I believe, page 798 towards the bottom. So I'm going to read today. My hope is to complete the chapter. In chapter 12, it was explained that man is created with a natural supremacy of the brain over the heart. And the reason is explained here, because the heart, despite its certain centrality, must in turn receive its own vital force from the soul through the medium of the brain. So even though the heart is centered to all the body, and the heart, when it does not function properly, could end the life, but still it gets its energy from the brain, so the brain must be above the heart. It, in a truly similar manner, figuratively speaking, does the Blessed Ein Sof fill all worlds so as to animate them. There is a marked similarity between the soul pervading the body and Ein Sof permeating all the worlds, just as in the analogy. The soul is found within and suffuses the entire body. In a parallel manner, Ein Sof fills and is found in all worlds. The same thing, and I explained that. Ali, can we continue reading? Oh, good.
Go ahead.
And in each world, 799, in each world, there are creatures without limit or end, myriads upon myriads of various grades of angels and souls and so on. The number of details that God had created in his creation is untold number. And so too is the abundance of the worlds without end or limit, one higher than the other, and so on. I think I told you number of angels, how many angels there are? There is a number. How many groups of angels? No, untold number of groups of angels. Same as universes. Actually, there are 4 general universes, but each one of those 4 is myriads and myriads untold. In the realm of the spirit, separate and distinct entities are the result of their being on different spiritual grades and levels. Thus, a multitude of worlds implies a multitude of varying levels of spirituality. Hence, the sheer numerousness of worlds and created beings, each differs from the other in its spiritual gradation. The Rabbi says, what defines in this universe different stages is based on the physical entity, big, small, heavy, light. In spirituality, there's no such definition. There's no such limitations. It's quality. So what defines one universe from the other is the spirituality refinement. And one is more refined than the other. So that level, in spiritual levels, there are myriads of levels. Earlier on, when explaining his analogy, the Alter Rebbe pointed out that despite the vast differences that exist between one bodily organ and the other, the soul's essence is equally to be found in them all. He now goes on to explain that in the analogy of the Ein Sof as well, the essence of the Ein Sof is found in hidden matter equally within all worlds. Just like in the body you have one soul, a DNA, before it's spread in and it's divided into parts, the same is with godliness. There is one component of that light, or Ein Sof, that is equally everywhere. Now, the core and essence of the blessed Ein Sof is the same in the higher and lower worlds as in the example of the soul mentioned above, wherein the Alter Rebbe explained that the soul's core and essence is not divisible, and thus it cannot be said of it that it is found in the brains to a greater extent than it's found in the feet. And as it is written in the Tikkunim, that he is hidden from all hidden. Meaning, this means to say that even in the higher hidden worlds, he is hidden and concealed within them, just as he is hidden and concealed in the lower worlds. In other words, there is no difference to that level of DNA between the highest spiritual realm and the lowest physical. They all are equally the same. And God was able to create different various levels of spirituality as well as the various levels of physicality, all for his desire, but it only after God fills them all in as one from the DNA. Thus, the intent of the Tikkun is not that God is more concealed than all other hidden things, but that he is concealed even from the hidden worlds, the same as in the revealed worlds. The reason for this being, for no thought can apprehend them at all, even in the higher worlds. So when he says stimo de kol setimin, hidden of all hidden, it's not that God is very hidden, it's that God is hidden equally between the animal, the plants, the human, the smartest man, the angel, the godly, the higher angels and the higher angels. All for them is equally the same. And I think with the body, we're going to go back to the body. DNA is farther from the body part that gives part to the skin tissue or the brains. It's all the same because they all are all inclusive in the DNA. In the DNA, it's all inclusive. There's no difference between brain tissue versus the vision of eye. Because God is equally concealed from all worlds, no distinction can be made between higher and lower. He defies the comprehension of higher worlds to the same degree that he cannot be comprehended of the lower worlds, and therefore, and he is found, that is, with regards to where God is to be found, just as he is found there in the higher world, so he is found to be found in the very lowest world. Did you understand that? That's the first part of godliness. I call it Sovev, all-encompassing, a circle that no end, no beginning, and is farther from the physical world equally to the same as he's farther from the spiritual worlds. There are myriads of levels, but for God it's all the same. Just like one drop of DNA can be cultured and developed into a brain, to a heart, to a liver, to lungs, to skin tissue, to hair, to muscle, to bones, to anything. It's not farther or closer to the DNA. It's all are equally the same in the distance from the DNA.
Remember, you think about it, everything is in control of God. So whatever's going on, whatever's happening, whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking, it's him.
Yes.
So how can we put a meaning to it?
That's what the rabbi wants to talk about. You are pointing out, or you're referring to the DNA. A DNA is so general, all-inclusive, bar none. And that's Sovev, that's everything. But after all, God created humans. God created animals. He created plants because he wanted it to be that way. And how did he create that? By creating, by emanating, by sending out a light out. That light is all-inclusive. But when it hit a human being, it will create a human being. When it hit the tapestry of a cow, it will create a cow. But from God's perspective, it's all the same. Does that help you?
Yes, and always back to the thing that God is.
God is everything. God is, right. By the way, there is a famous prayer that we say every Rosh Chodesh called the Hallel. Yetziat Israel miMitzrayim, when Israel came out of Israel. We say over there, Ram al kol goim Hashem. The non-Jewish people say Ram. Ram means above, high. Al kol goim, above all nations and all physicality, God. In other words, they believe that God, the more spiritually you are, the closer you are to God. So if you want to refine yourself and become close to God, you have got to let go of the physical universe. Ram al kol goim Hashem. He is up there in spirituality. And therefore, seek God. How do you seek God? Becoming spiritual. That's why they will stay away from getting married. They would go and hide in a cave. They will, in their life, exemplify spirituality as opposed to the physical material universe. What does the Jewish people say? The continuation of the same psalm. Amashpili lirot bashamayim u'ba'aretz. That God lowers himself to see heaven and earth. Because for God, heaven and earth is the same. God is not closer to heaven than he's closer to the earth. Bashamayim u'ba'aretz, in heaven and earth all equally. So if I want to be closer to God, and I refine myself in a way of becoming more spiritual, I'm not necessarily getting closer to God. You want to get closer to God, obey God. And God wants us to celebrate Shabbat with good food. God wants me to invite guests over to the Shabbat meal. God wants me to tell the truth. God wants me to go to work and earn a living and contribute to society. So if I leave that and go and become spiritual, I stay away from God. So this is that chapter where Ramal called Goyim Hashem, all the Goyim, all the nations. Goy, not in a derogatory. Goy means a nation. All nations say that God is above there and therefore seek God, go up to God. And the Jewish people say, God lowered himself to the heaven equally the same to the earth. There is no distinction. For God, it's all the same. And therefore, we can find God in this physical universe. Harry, did you understand that? The Alter Rebbe will soon conclude that this revelation is intended for the purpose of vitalizing the worlds and their inhabitants. For the vitality of all worlds and creatures derives from the revelation of godliness within them. Thus, the differences between the higher and lower worlds lies in the varying degrees of divine revelation within them. The fact that you have an animal and a man, a plant and a mountain, is because there are different levels of godliness. Just like the eye versus the hand, the muscle versus the bone, is because the soul gives it a different type of energy. But it does not change a bit of the soul. God does not change by the fact that there is a human being or there is a flower. It's all the same for God. With regards to revelation, out of concealment, the Alter Rebbe now states parenthetically that this manner of revelation is one of the reasons why the godly vitality found within the worlds is called light, says the Rebbe, which is one of the reasons why the influence and flow of this vitality is figuratively called light, or Ein Sof. Or in Hebrew is light. Light. Or is light. Vayhi or. And there was light. Or is compared to godliness, the way it creates the universe. I'm going to continue. I'm skipping the commentary. It says the Rebbe thereby animating the worlds and the creatures therein. Herein lies the difference between the higher and lower worlds. For the higher worlds receive this vitality and light in a somewhat more revealed form than do the lower. That is, even in the higher worlds, this light and vitality is not manifestly revealed, and all creatures therein, in the higher worlds, receive the revealed aspects of vitality, albeit each according to its capacity and nature, just as I explained to you. Now we're talking about Memale. So if I have light, a projector that comes out, and someone puts a veil, they will get much less light. So when God wanted, the same is by the way the soul. It's easy for me to talk about the DNA. When the DNA starts spreading from the brains out to the body, it goes to the finger and it knows that it needs to create a skin. Once it creates the skin is the one who defines or limit the energy that came from the soul. It's not the soul. And that's why it gives back report to the soul, and that's why it's controlled by the soul, just like before, because it all came from there, and equally the quality is the same in here than in the brain or in my heart or in my lungs or in my eyes. It's just that the vessel that contains now is different, and therefore it's housed or reveals that part of the soul. So you have a light, and if there are veils, more veils, less light. And that's what happens in the different myriads levels of the universe or in spiritual realms. Says the Rebbe, which is the nature and form of the particular flow with which the Blessed Ein Sof imbues and illuminates it. But the lower worlds and creatures, even the spiritual ones, do not receive the divine life force in quite such a revealed form as it is received in the higher worlds, but only by means of many garments, wherein the Blessed Ein Sof invests the vitality and light which he causes to flow and shine on them in order to animate them. So once you have many more levels, There is much less light until it converts into becoming a physical entity. Just like the first part of the body, when it's created in a mother's womb, you have the heart, the lungs. The last part is the hair. Hair is very physical, materialistic, very far in comparison to even the finger, let alone internal body parts. How do I know? If I cut my hair, it's not going to hurt. If I cut my nails, it's not going to hurt. Because the energy, by the time it reaches, went through so many levels. That's the 9 months. The 9 months. So the vital parts are created first. They are very refined, very, very. The soul is much more revealed in them. That's why they are vital parts. Over time, more body parts, legs, torso is developed. And then the last part is the hair and the nails. That time it's like God is creating spiritual universes, less light, lower spiritual universes, much more less light, less spiritual universes. And then finally it turned in that there is no spiritual universes, but a physical universe. And within the physical universe, you'll have different levels. Why? Because it's so far, the light is blocked in so many ways. By the time the little drops of light that came to create something, it can only create a physical entity that's totally removed from spirituality. Just like my hair and my nails, totally removed from the soul. I can cut it and remove it from my body, and nothing happened. The soul doesn't even sense that. The soul does not even get hurt. Did you understand that idea?
It's so good.
Right, but it's so little that it doesn't hurt the soul if I cut it. Unless I cut, much. Just a minute, I want to make sure you understand. So in other words, the light starts coming out from Sovev. You have, it's called a circle. Then you have a line of energy. But that line will have a garments that blocks the light, but a little bit will come in. That will create many, many spiritual universes. By the time it reaches, like after, let's say, 1,000 different veils, that light would be so minute and so far removed that it can create a physical universe. That physical, it's just like in the human, the last part of the child that's developed is the hair and the nail. What's unique about the hair and the nail? I'll call them material or physical compared to spiritual. The rest of the body of the baby, if you touch it, it will get hurt. It will hurt the soul. But the nail that
nails
grows,
and the hair.
or the hair, if you cut, it will not sense it. That's called physical compared to spirituality. Ali, do you understand? Leon, you understand that?
I'm just a little confused, but here, go ahead, you had
I
something.
want to ask, could you tell me, we talking about the upper and lower worlds? Yeah. Upper and lower. worlds.
Right. There are many universes, myriads upon myriads, because in spirituality,
Low.
we are the lowest of the low. There is no lower than this universe. Just like the hair or the nail is the lowest of the body, we are the physical, and that's why I use the example of a baby being born by the mother. It takes 8 months. Why? The first body parts are created right away because they are very refined, so they are much closer to the source, to the soul. The last one is born last. Why? Because it's so far removed. Therefore, it has to be born much, much later. And on the other hand, if you cut it, if you touch that part, it will not hurt the soul anymore because it's so far removed. But still, it's controlled, it grows. Let's
We said that there's no difference to God between.
That's what the point.
all-
The light, from the light perspective, the light is the same.
But at the same time, it's becoming dimmer and dimmer as it moves down.
But not from the source of the light. The source of the light is the same. From the recipient, correct. The light is the same
So it's the same with God because he continues to bring the same amount of light.
all the time.
Okay.
But so if I were to ask you, why do we need spiritual universes? The answer is all for that a physical universe be created. In other words, the spiritual universes are the veils that block the light. God wanted to create a universe where godliness will be totally obliterated, totally gone. You can't sense it. So we have a true choice. In order for him to do that, what did he do? He created a spiritual universe. You know what the spiritual universe is considered in Kabbalah? A veil. So now there is a little light. Then he created another veil. Then he created another veil. A fourth veil. By that time, there is no light that you can see. And that's when it turned into a physical universe. So we have four general universes, right? An emanation, a creation, formation, and action. Okay, the last one. All the other three are necessary, not for themselves, but for creation, the last one. If you remove one of them, this universe would have a lot more light. If it would have a lot more light, there will be no equal right from wrong choice. Choice does not exist. So they all are, as the mission says, I was created to serve my creator, and all of the universes were created to serve me. In order for me to be born here, there had to be all those spiritual levels, myriads upon myriads of veils, so that a physical human being, a physical universe can be created.
What did they call that?
Freedom of choice.
Vessels were broken with the light.
Tikkun olam. Exactly. Harry, do you understand what we're talking about? Okay, let's continue. These garments, I am on page 803. These garments wherein the blessed Ein Sof invests and conceals the light and vitality are so strong and powerful that thereby with this life force and light, he created this world that is vast, verily corporal and physical. Just as I explained to you, they were absolutely necessary to create veils for the physical universe. And God created and animated by the vitality and light which he draws down and shines forth unto it. This illumination is a light that is clothed, hidden, and concealed within the numerous and powerful garments which hide and conceal the light and vitality, so that no light or vitality whatsoever is visibly revealed, but only corporal and physical things that appear lifeless. I hope I explained it clear. Gazing at corporal things, such as that physical orb of earth, can cause a person to imagine them as utterly lifeless, totally devoid of any spiritual vitality. Yet they contain light and vitality, which constantly creates them ex nihilo, so that they shall not revert to nothing and not as they had been prior to their creation. God is in them equally the same as in other universes. However, for the recipient, it looks much less. This light comes from the blessed Ein Sof, except that it is clothed in many garments, as it is written in Chaim, that the light and vitality of the physical orb of earth, which is seen by mortal eyes, is derived from Malchut of Asiya, the lowest of the lowest. Did I make myself clear? Ali?
I'm good. You skipped the part though that's important.
Which one?
Creation ex nihilo.
Must be constant. The fact that the world and its creatures were already once created during the 6 days of creation does not suffice. Rather, there must be a constant renewal of creation from its source. Thus, the godly light and vitality that is responsible for creation is constantly found within created beings, albeit in a concealed fashion. Just, I showed
It's constantly being created.
my soul in my body parts, I just showed, I think, with Leon. If there is no life energy or soul in my fingers, I wouldn't sense, it wouldn't move. In other words, the fact that they are created is one thing, but they don't function unless there is continuous. Another example for the shortest of time, computer, if you pull the plug, computer is not functioning. Even though you have the body of the computer, it has to be continuously plugged in. So light, that's why godliness is compared to light, because it's easy. Light, the source of the light never change. Those who benefit from the light, it changes based on how many veils there are. So if you don't have the atmosphere, the sun will burn us. What happened with the layer ozone when it removes? If it's been removed, it will cause a lot of danger. It will drain the oceans. The sun never changed. The sun is the same. It emits the same energy, heat, light as always.
We didn't have dust from the
Right? If we didn't have dust, if we didn't have the layer, ozone layer. In other words, it depends on us. Now, what happens if I walk into a basement? I don't see any light. And if I go in the basement to the eighth floor of the basement, completely nothing. The chidush, the teaching is that light of godliness must exist all the time, just like the soul must exist in the body all the time. Except God needed to create many veils. The spiritual realms are veils, are not close. They are closer to God. That's why they serve as veils, because they are closer to God. The idea is that the universe will be created totally removed from God. It can only happen with those veils. Yes, may I make myself clear?
Yes.
And in its contain on page 805. And in it is contained Malchus of the next highest world, the world of Yetzirah, and so on. Within Malchus of Yetzirah, in turn, there is contained Malchus of Beria, and so on. There are levels and myriads of 10 attributes in each universe, and they go like a ladder of many rungs. And that you climb down, or you go down the ladder 10 steps. Then you have another ladder, then another ladder, another ladder. If you remove one ladder and you raise the universe, our universe, it would be a spiritual universe. It wouldn't be a physical universe. So that in all of them, within the levels of Malchus of all the world, including the level of Malchus of Asiya, are contained the 10 Sfirot of the loftiest world and the world of Atzilut, as which are united with their emanator, the blessed Ein Sof. Says Rabbi, at the end of the day, that light that started is the same light that exists within the lowest physical universe. The fact that we don't sense it, the fact that we don't feel it, is only because we have many, so to say, veils that conceals it. But it's there in this universe. We have all of the levels of before contained within the light here too as well.
But it's concealed in all universes, just as everyone.
It's concealed in various levels, right? In this universe, it's concealed more than any other place and cannot be anymore because more concealment don't exist. It's impossible. This universe is the most concealed of light of God. So in summary, God is created a universe compared to the soul. The soul has two parts. One, the DNA that control all inclusive. The other one that is divided into parts, into the body parts. Godliness, the same thing. You have a Sovev, is all inclusive. That created everything equally the same. And then it's called the circle. And then you have the line, a line that goes down many levels. In general, 40 levels. 10 in each universe. But in each universe, there are myriads of levels of spiritual steps. And it comes here, it could not get any less. But here, still, in this light, the quality of godliness, just like when it started, so is here. And that creates us. So far, we covered the way God vivifies the universe and how the human body is a good example for God's operating in the universe. Chapter 52, the Rabbi is going to talk about Chokhmah, the start of the soul, the start of godliness in this universe, and the Rabbi would bring in the study of Torah. Why study of Torah is so essential from God's perspective and our connection to God. We'll conclude today and continue next week, God willing. Thank you very much.
Yashar Koach, Rabbi, thank you very much.